Marie looked out the window and smiled, now understanding why her 18-year-old daughter had been standing in the kitchen, seemingly preoccupied. A young man was on the stairs cleaning Mrs. Arduin's gutters. His sweat-soaked T-shirt clung to his slender frame, and his jeans showcased his figure impressively. "You know him?" Marie asked as Pam, dressed in her own pair of jeans and a tight T-shirt, returned to the kitchen. "Uh-huh," Pam replied, brushing her long red hair. "Well, does he have a name, and how do you know him?" Marie pressed. "John. He's in my class," Pam admitted, then squealed. Marie looked back to see John nearly tumble down the tall staircase. As he slipped, the corner of Mrs. Arduin's rusty gutter caught his jeans, ripping them from knee to pocket. Fortunately, the metal didn't pierce his skin. Pam rushed outside. "Hey, John, are you okay?" she asked. "Oh, hi, Pam. What are you doing here?" John replied, his handsome face flushed with embarrassment. He blushed both from his clumsiness and because Pam, an attractive young woman, was talking to him. John often struggled talking to attractive young women, stuttering due to years of bullying from his older brother and schoolmates. "So, how much is Mrs. Arduin paying you for this?" Pam asked as John resumed shoveling debris from the gutters. "40, John said, his stutter making the word a bit longer. "Oh, boy," Pam exclaimed. "Superior Lawn Care told her it would cost 200. John's face fell as he realized he was being underpaid, but he quickly returned to his task with determination. "Mind your own business," Mrs. Arduin hissed at Pam. "What does your Bible say about deceiving people? Come to my church and listen to the word of the Lord," snapped Marie, standing behind her daughter. The old woman glared at them before slamming her door shut. "Why are you even doing this?" Pam asked John, noticing his ripped jeans and glimpses of his plain white briefs. "Claire wants to buy this Omega watch," John said, finishing his work around the east side of the house. "Then why are you doing this?" Pam prodded as he descended the stairs. "I told you, Claire wanted—" He began, shaking the nearly full bag into the trash can. "But why are you doing this? Why isn't she the one cleaning out gutters?" Pam demanded. "She's the one who wants the watch." John didn't respond, simply moving the ladder to the front of the house. "Seriously, she's the only one who needs that stupid watch. What about you?" Pam asked as John went back to work. "Why are you doing this?" "Well, Claire wants to—" John started again. "No, John, what about you, huh? What do you want?" Pam asked again. "Well, Claire wants—" John began. Pam made sure her mother was out of earshot. "Screw what Claire wants, okay, John?" she hissed. "What about you? What do you get out of this?" "Well, I'll give her this watch and—" John started. "You took her to Side by Side, didn't you?" Pam interjected. John smiled, recalling how Claire had really wanted to go to the expensive steakhouse. He had used the money intended for his birthday party to take the gorgeous strawberry blonde to the restaurant. Afterward, she kissed him tenderly and thanked him for a wonderful evening. "And she got a porterhouse, right?" Pam interrupted his recollection of that sweet kiss. "How do you know that?" John asked, surprised. "Because she was laughing about it the next day," Pam snorted. "She took a 22-ounce porterhouse costing, what, $80, and took most of it home. You know who ate it." "Tad Bell, that's who," Pam said. "She makes you take her there, and then gives the food to her boyfriend." "They broke up," John said defensively. "Bullshit, they broke up," Pam retorted. "Pam, how am I raising you to talk like that?" Marie yelled from inside. "I'm sorry," Pam said, her face flushing with embarrassment. No, she told me they broke up," John insisted. "Yeah? Then why does she always sit with him in the cafeteria?" Pam asked. "Says that even though they broke up, they're still friends," John offered weakly. "John, I bet you $1 million she's at his house right now," Pam said, touching his leg gently. "You're over here busting your ass, and she's laughing at you." "No, that's not true. I got a text from her that she's at her mom's. It's her mom's weekend," John said. "John, she makes you buy her all this stuff, take her places, and what do you get out of it?" Pam pressed. "Do you even get a kiss?" "Well, yeah, we kiss all the time," John said. "Wow, she won't even let you touch her breasts, huh?" Pam said. "You know why? Her boyfriend says they're his. So does she." John ducked down to move the ladder another 5 feet. Pam stopped him with a gentle touch on his chest, her icy green eyes locking onto his warm brown ones. "I know 4 girls who would die for you to take them anywhere but side by side," she said. "Yeah? Who?" John replied. "I asked Lori, Bria, and—" "God, it's like you're not real," Pam said in disgust. "Then who is?" John asked. "Melanie Richards? Tiffany Harris?" She counted off on her fingers. "Tiffany?" John protested. "It can't be." He shook his head and started back to the stairs. "Why not? What's wrong with her?" Pam defended her friend. "Isn't she gorgeous?" "Yeah, but—" John hesitated. "And?" Pam pressed. John didn't respond and continued with his task. "God, you're so stupid," Pam hissed before walking away. "Come on, John," she shouted before slamming the door. "Does he know you're in love with him?" Marie asked as her daughter stomped through the house. "No, he's too stupid," Pam denied. When John finished, Mrs. Arduin handed him $80 in crumpled old bills. Pam stood behind the sweating John, grinning at the sour old woman. "I have a fixed income," Mrs. Arduin snapped at Pam before slamming the door shut again. "Yeah, that's why there's a brand new Beamer in your driveway, right?" Pam retorted. She then turned to John. "Come on, I have something to show you," she said, taking his hand. Pam was very attractive, with long red hair, a sweet smile, and an impressive figure. John often fantasized about having the courage to ask her out. But then Claire cornered him in the library, pressed him against a shelf, and kissed him tenderly. "Thad and I broke up," she whispered. "Do you want to drive me to La Scalia? Do you have your cell phone with you?" Pam asked as she unlocked the car door. "Yeah," John said, hesitating to get in and dirty the seat with his sweaty body. "Send her a text, see what she's doing," ordered Pam, starting the car. "Hey, what are you doing?" John muttered as he pressed the send button. Pam drove to Bentley Street, a lower middle-class neighborhood in Bender, Louisiana. Claire replied that she and her mother were shopping at the Courtyard Mall in Pinoaca. "Then what's her car doing there?" Pam asked, pointing to Claire's white Toyota Camry. "Then what's your car doing?" John began, but Pam knocked the phone out of his hands. "Hey!" shouted John. "Don't be a fool," Pam hissed. "Use this to your advantage." "Where are we, anyway?" John asked. "This is Thaddeus Bell's house," Pam said as she parked next to Claire's car. She climbed out, braced herself on the ground, and knelt next to the passenger side of Claire's car. John couldn't see what she was doing. Pam quickly got back into the car and drove away. At the corner of Bentley and Romero, she pulled up to a small house and honked. Moments later, Tiffany Harris climbed into the back seat. "What's up, girl?" Tiffany said. "Called Tiffany and she said Claire's car has been parked there since 9 this morning," Pam admitted. John hung his head. They drove around town for a few minutes before pulling up in front of Clark's drive-in. "Oh, let me—" Tiffany began. "Big strawberry malt," Pam finished. An attractive blonde woman came out to take their order. Pam made John get a chocolate malt and then whisked away. "Girl, couldn't pay me to skate with my ass hanging out and all," Tiffany stated, watching the girl's buttocks in short red shorts. "Uh-huh," Pam agreed. "You mean use this to my advantage?" John asked as the girl returned with a tray holding 3 tall glasses of malt. "Huh? Oh, this," Pam said, handing the girl a $20 bill. "Next time Claire says, 'Oh, John, honey, take me to Side by Side,' just ask her what's in it for you," Pam advised. "When she wants a fancy watch, ask what you get in return. See what she says." "Let me guess. It's that Omega," Tiffany said from the back seat, taking a loud sip of her malt. "Yeah," John replied. "Chrome Sports," Pam suggested. John looked at her with interest. "Matches the one Tad always wears," Tiffany added. "So, how many do you have so far?" Pam asked. "Well, David's over there by the new Tornado's Donut Shop," John said. "Oh man, I love them. Have you tried strawberry? It's awesome," Tiffany enthused from the back seat. "Caramel is the best, and don't bother with anything else," Pam objected. "When they're hot, vanilla is the best," John interjected. "Are you serious? You're all crazy if you think vanilla is good," Tiffany declared. "Anyway," Pam laughed as even John let a smile spread across his handsome face. "He has the one she wants for $600, John said. "And how much do you have?" Pam asked, studying his face. I've got nearly 300, and Mrs. Arduin just gave me 80, so... John trailed off. Then here's what you do, Pam said, finishing her malt and setting the glass on the gray table. Claire received a third text message from her father demanding she return home immediately. Sighing, she replied that she would be there in 10 minutes. Now, her father replied. Claire got dressed, kissed Tad, and walked out of his bedroom. See you later, Miss Nettie, she said to Tad's grandmother. Huh? Wait, what baby? The old lady said, trying to adjust her hearing aid. The darn thing's not working again. You need new batteries, Tad suggested. Claire walked out of the house as Tad and his grandmother argued about how expensive batteries were. The trip from Bentley to Broussard Lane took about 15 minutes. This, too, was a lower-middle-class neighborhood. Unlike Bentley, there were no houses here with for sale signs. There were no cars in the driveways. About time, her father grumbled as she entered the house. Where have you been? In the courtyard. Left my phone in the car, Claire lied. You leave your phone everywhere, Steve scoffed. I need you to keep an eye on Whitney. Pops just called, and I need to get to Great Oak, Texas, right away. Why can't the one who got the snot down watch her? Claire complained. She's your sister. Can't you watch her for 10 minutes at least? Her father grumbled as he left the house. I don't have a sister, Claire hisses. As she stopped, she could hear her father's semi-trailer idling and then the sound of gears shifting with a clatter. Claire, the 6-year-old girl proclaimed loudly and joyfully as she saw her older sister walk past her bedroom door. Even in anger, Claire couldn't help but smile as she looked at the young girl. The 6-year-old's almond-shaped eyes glistened with happiness as she scrambled to her feet. What are you doing? Claire asked. Playing Barbie. Do you want to play? The girl asked hopefully, hugging her sister. Let me go to the bathroom and I'll be right back, Claire promised. Then she came back and spent the next 2 hours playing with Barbie dolls. Hi, Carmen said from the doorway. It's about damn time. Where have you been? Snapped Claire at her stepmother. In the library. I teach English every Saturday, the petite woman replied, her smile fading. Yeah, but Dad had to run, Claire muttered, rising to her feet. Carmen put a protective hand on her swollen belly, even though Claire had never been physically threatening. We're not done yet, Whitney whined as Claire left the room. Oh, but I think someone needs animal crackers, don't you? Carmen said, smiling at her daughter. Claire, we have animal crackers. Do you want some? Exclaimed Whitney. No, I'm a vegetarian, remember? Claire called back from her bedroom. She's so silly, Carmen smiled as she and her daughter walked down the hallway to the kitchen. Animal crackers aren't made from animals. While Whitney ate animal crackers and washed them down with soy milk, Carmen, a native of Hoang Lo, talked about her homeland, Vietnam. And I've never been there, Whitney asked, already knowing the answer. No, you've never been there. You're an American, Carmen said. You're not, Claire whispered hatefully, taking a banana from a bowl on the counter. Just then, someone knocked on the front door. Move, I'll get it, Claire snarled. We should take a look at your car, their neighbor growled. What's the matter? What's wrong? Carmen asked as Claire went out to inspect her car. What? Cried Claire in horror as she read the message. I don't want my children to see this, the neighbor declared. Carmen covered her mouth with her hand to hide an amused smile. Claire went to the pantry, got a can of spray paint, and covered the offending message. Then she called John. Hello, said John cheerfully. You wrote that on my car? Demanded Claire. What? Writing, Claire? What are you talking about? Asked John. Someone wrote some nasty stuff on my car, Claire shrilled. Did you do that? Claire, I'm sorry someone wrote something on your car, but it wasn't me. I don't even know where your mom lives, John denied. Oh, yes, Claire said, recalling the lies she had spun for the gullible young man. And even if I did, why would I write anything on your car? Continued John. I don't know, Claire had to admit. John speculated on who might have vandalized Claire's car, though he hadn't seen Pam actually writing anything. He had only noticed her crouched near another girl's car. So, what did they write? Asked John, genuinely interested. Oh, it's too nasty, said Claire. Anyway, are you doing anything tonight? Asked John. Tad suggested she take the sucker to Radcliffe's and take most of the food with her. He'd never eaten at an expensive restaurant, and he was curious about their cuisine. "Do you think we could go to Radcliffe's?" asked Claire. Carmen raised her eyebrows. She had heard about this expensive place, where a typical meal cost almost a week's salary. "Radcliffe's?" asked John incredulously. "Please?" Claire pleaded into the receiver. "Claire, come on, really, I mean, geez. I just saved up almost all the money for that watch you wanted," John whined over the phone. "Please?" sang Claire into the receiver. "Have you ever eaten there?" asked John. "Well, no, but why not? I really want to go," Claire cooed. "Well, I have plans, and, Manny's is okay," suggested John. "No," muttered Claire and hung up. In his bedroom, John shrugged and dialed Tiffany's number. Pam had mentioned that Melanie Richards, Stephanie Straughter, and Tiffany Harris would love to go out with him. Before Pam dropped John off at his house, Tiffany had asked him for his phone number. "Tiffany, seriously!" yelled Pam. This puzzled John, but he gave the girl his phone number, and just as he was explaining to his mom how his blue jeans had ripped, the phone rang. "And now you have my phone number, too," Tiffany said. Behind her lively voice, John could hear Pam complaining. Now he dialed Tiffany's number, silently praying to not stutter or sound foolish. "Hello," Tiffany greeted. "Hi, Tiffany, it's..." John stammered. "The dork who thinks vanilla is good and all," suggested Tiffany. "It's awesome," John defended himself. "Nope, you're way off. Vanilla is not good," Tiffany chuckled. "Anyway, you want to go to Manny's? Do you like Manny?" John stammered, glancing nervously at his older brother, who stood smirking in the doorway. Tiffany agreed and hung up the phone, then squealed happily. In her own bedroom, Pam squealed with indignation when she received a text from Tiffany that John had asked her out. "I hate you!" Pam shouted in response to the message. "Pam Renee Theriot," Marie scolded from the doorway of her daughter's bedroom. "Is this true?" sobbed Pam. Marie listened patiently to her daughter's tale of woe. "Did you or did you not tell me you hated him because he was dumb?" Marie finally asked. "But I didn't mean it," Pam wailed. "Honey, when he gave Tiffany his phone number, why didn't you give him yours?" Marie asked. "I hadn't thought about it," Pam admitted. "Well, start thinking about it now," Marie declared. While Pam was lamenting to her mother, John's older brother, Grant, was giving him useless advice on what to do on a date. "Take her bowling," Grant suggested, "especially if she's wearing shorts." "Why? What for?" John asked, pulling on a pair of khakis. "Dude, bowling? They have to bend over, so that means they'll stick their asses right in your face," his brother explained. "Dude, you need professional help," John sighed. "At least I'm not the oldest virgin in the world," Grant retorted. By the time John was pulling his Kia out of the driveway, Claire had come to her senses. Manny's wasn't Radcliffe's, but at least at Manny's she could eat something better than Grandma Tata's usual burnt fried steak on Saturdays. Manny's would be an improvement over Carmen's usual canned fare, and John had mentioned he almost had enough money to buy her the Omega watch she'd been dreaming of ever since Tad bought his watch at Cash for Gold Pawn Shop. So she sent John a text message. John looked at his phone in confusion, then replied a few minutes later saying he was sorry, but he already had plans to go to Manny's with a buddy. Frowning, John glanced at the house he now knew belonged to Thaddeus Bell, then parked in front of Tiffany's house. His phone beeped again. Claire had sent another text, offering to join him and the guy he was going to Manny's with. His phone rang as he was texting Claire back that it would just be a guy's night, but he'd talk to her later. "Hello?" he answered, not recognizing the number. "Hi, John. I won't keep you long. I know you're on your way to pick up Tiffany," Pam said, "but I just wanted you to have my phone number in case you ever need it, or want it, or... John listened to Pam mumble something, almost amused, with a polite, "Oh, okay, I'll talk to you later then, all right?" Pam hung up. John rang the doorbell. "We'll have to knock," Tiffany's voice came from behind the door. "The doorbell doesn't work." John chuckled and knocked. Tiffany opened the door promptly. He met Tiffany's mother, a slender white woman whose warm smile greeted him, and Tiffany's stepfather, a bulky black man. When John reached out, the man's hand engulfed John's arm, and John's eyes widened. Despite being of average height, Mr. Delbert towered over him. "Come on, Pops. You're scaring him," Tiffany said lightly. "Just trying to give him a hard time." The man laughed. I'm kidding," John chuckled nervously, and Mr. Delbert put his hand comfortingly on the young man's shoulder. "Are you treating her right? You've got nothing to worry about," Mr. Delbert reassured him. "Mishandling her?" added Tiffany's mother, her tone hinting at a protective edge. At Manny's, John soon relaxed as Tiffany gently teased him, sprinkled with frequent compliments and friendly touches. She playfully nudged him as she took his hand in hers, leading him across the parking lot to the bowling alley. "And what was that?" boasted the plump woman as she and her elderly husband exited the bowling alley. 139, and you've got, oh yeah, 115. Both Tiffany and John chuckled as the woman insisted she didn't need to carry the bowling bag because she had won. "Shh, Brittany, let's not embarrass ourselves," Brian teased as he unlocked the door of his 1972 Chevy Malibu. The woman who had guided them earlier frowned slightly as she glanced at the mixed couple, but said nothing. John had to hand it to Grant. Bowling turned out to be a much more entertaining sport than he had imagined. Tiffany gyrated, wiggled, twisted, and bounced as she sent the ball down the lane. And when she accidentally knocked down all 10 pins, John received quite a kiss. But when John managed to pick up a spare, Tiffany just shrugged and pretended to yawn. She held his hand again as they returned to the counter to hand in their scorecard and rented shoes. His cell phone rang, sitting in the cup holder. John ignored it, earning an approving nod from Tiffany. At Clark's, Tiffany ordered a banana split, with scoops of strawberry and chocolate ice cream, and suggested John try vanilla. "Vanilla boy, you are quite the kisser," she complimented him. The porch light flickered twice and then went out, prompting Tiffany to quickly exit the car. "See you later, white boy," she said cheerfully as she staggered towards her door. Mr. Delbert opened the door before Tiffany could get her key out and nodded, his expression neutral. John waved and departed. "Daddy, why are you acting like that?" Tiffany complained. "You're a fine young lady, and boys better treat you like a queen," he said, affectionately placing a hand on her shoulder as they entered the house. "Don't worry, Vanilla Boy treats me well," she smiled, recounting the entire date, including the kiss at the end. "Vanilla Boy, huh?" Her mom smiled. "Does he call you Strawberry Girl?" In the car, John scrolled through the numerous text messages Claire had sent him. He almost wanted to boast. Usually he was the one sending message after message, with Claire responding an hour or two later. Her replies were typically brief, often discouraging his attempts to communicate. "Sorry, I left my phone in the car," he replied. "So where have you been?" Claire retorted angrily. "You weren't at Manny's that long." "We went bowling after dinner," John answered promptly. "And who's we?" demanded Claire. John avoided the question, deflecting like Claire often did herself. He talked about his day's work, the ruined blue jeans, and his progress towards affording a watch. "Almost enough for that watch," John concluded. Even with Claire's narcissism, she noticed John wasn't the obedient follower, waiting on her every command. "Huh?" John responded when Claire reluctantly asked what he meant. "Oh, nothing. Just busting my butt trying to save up that $600. Oh, damn. I completely forgot about taxes. How much is the tax? Like 8.5%. At their cafeteria table, Pam, Tiffany, Melanie, and Stephanie smirked at Claire's frustration. "I'm still mad at you," Pam declared, snagging fries from Tiffany's tray. "Why? You snooze, you lose," Tiffany shrugged. "But I wanted him first," Pam pouted, grabbing Tiffany's arm before Tiffany could swipe Pam's nachos. "Really?" Tiffany glanced at Trent Forcade. "Tell you what, you ask Trent to take me out and I'll let you have Vanilla Boy." "And stop calling him that." Pam laughed. After class, John dutifully drove Claire home since her car was getting repainted. "What did they paint on it?" John asked. "I don't know, John. I forgot to ask when they did it," Claire said sarcastically. "If it was just a Marks-a-Lot, WD-40 would have taken it right off," John remarked, and Claire felt a pang of regret. Her father refused to pay the $300 Huell charged. Her insurance didn't cover it either because she forgot to file a police report, and the deductible was $1,000. I had to buy new jeans. You know how expensive they are, John told her. But Claire wasn't listening. On Thad's car, the front right quarter was a different color, and the rear passenger door didn't match the rest. Thad saw no reason for Angel to repaint Claire's car, let alone pay for it. She could ask John to pay for the car painting, but then he wouldn't have the money for the watch. Want to go to Clark's? She cooed. Sure, John shrugged. He hoped the waitress wouldn't recognize him from his recent visit just last Saturday. It turned out to be the same waitress who served them Tiffany's banana split and his dipped cone, but she didn't seem to remember him or his Kia. A watch, or a car, Claire reasoned with herself. Ultimately, Claire decided the watch was more important because it was more expensive. She made up her mind to sneak her father's credit card to cover the cost of repainting the car. Your dad's a trucker, right? Asked John. Yeah, he's about to head out on another trip this Thursday, Claire confirmed. Does he travel a lot? John inquired. Not too often, Claire shrugged. I think I'd like that, John remarked. Claire looked at him and smiled. Her father actually made a decent living. Despite complaining about child support payments to her mother and the expenses for Carmen and Whitney, he managed to keep up with the bills. Claire imagined if John became a trucker, they could have their own place. And when John was away on trips, Tad could come over. Yeah, you'd enjoy being a trucker, Claire said with a broad smile, squeezing his hand happily. After dropping her off, John didn't offer to pick her up from school the next day. Claire thought about this before getting out of his car. For a kiss, John proposed. Claire almost retorted that he had no right to make deals. She was in charge. Sighing, she leaned against the small console, kissed him gently, and then got out of the car. Since her father wasn't home, Claire decided to spend Friday night at Thad's house. His grandmother was very hard of hearing and nearly blind. Carmen would likely object, maybe even report to her father, but Claire planned to make up a story about staying over at a friend's house. But what about John? Last weekend she'd already used Mother's Weekend as an excuse. The one time she tried to use Whitney as an excuse, Whitney had offered to come along. So she decided to pick a fight with John, staging a lover's quarrel. Got that watch yet? She asked when he'd picked her up for school. Almost, he replied. By the way, these are the jeans I bought. Do you like them? She asked. Perfect, she thought. So you could have had that watch, but you decided to buy yourself jeans instead, she shrilled. I needed to... John stammered. As they pulled up to Northside Middle School, she maintained an air of being angry and disappointed in him. Hey, Vanilla Boy, Tiffany greeted John almost with a smile as he stacked his textbooks in his locker. I told you to stop calling him that, Pam hissed Thad. Hi, Tiffany, John acknowledged. Hi, Pam. So, are you taking Claire out tonight? Tiffany inquired. I don't think so. She's kind of mad at me, John shrugged. Why don't you pick up Pam and we'll double date? Tiffany suggested quickly. Do you mind? John asked. Sure, around 6. Does that work for you? Pam suggested. In Earth Science class, a slow smile spread across John's face. Pam had mentioned 4 girls who were eager to go out with him on Saturday, but she only named Tiffany, Melanie, and Stephanie. So, who's the 4th girl? John pondered to himself, smiling broadly. At 3:15 that afternoon, Claire walked out of the school building and stopped, stunned. All the buses had already left. School ended at 2:45, but Claire had made John wait 30 minutes to let him know she was still upset with him. Of course, he hadn't waited for her. Where the hell are you? She growled into her phone and hit send to send him that message. John laughed out loud upon receiving the message. You haven't spoken to me all day, so I figured there was no point in waiting for you, he replied. Your ass better be here in 5 minutes. Claire started, but immediately realized she had very little leverage. Just come pick me up, she demanded. John pulled up 10 minutes later, and Claire got into the car. It wasn't until Claire was in her room, pleading with Tad to come get her, she didn't feel like going to his house, that she realized John hadn't asked her out for that night, hadn't inquired about her plans. Tad told her he needed $5 for gas, and Claire reluctantly agreed to pay for the gas if he would just come get her. Tad arrived to pick her up, and a very sullen Claire shoved $5 into his hand. "Hey, you don't have to be like that, huh?" he hissed after her. Trent Fourcade felt extremely uncomfortable around Tiffany's mother and stepfather. It made him twitch. A white woman with a black man. Black man. He quote, Trent did not use such a term to describe Mr. Delbert. He was also embarrassed to be seen by John Ungle and Pam Theriot on a date with a biracial girl. But the 4 teens were eating at Manny's. Pam, Tiffany, and John, with his persistent stutter doing most of the talking. During the short walk across the parking lot to the bowling alley, Tiffany attempted to take Trent's hand, but he kept it firmly in his pocket. Pam, on the other hand, grabbed John's arm and smiled as he wrapped his arm around her slim waist. Bowling with Tiffany was enjoyable. However, bowling with Tiffany and Pam turned into a lively, rowdy affair. Trent beat them all in the first and second games, but didn't seem to be having much fun. "Okay, let's take Vanilla Boy's car to Clark's," Tiffany decided. "I told you not to call him that," Pam interjected. "Oh, come on. We're taking John Cracker's car to—" Tiffany smirked at Pam. "That's it. We're not friends anymore," Pam declared. "What? Why are we taking—" Trent grumbled. "It's a double date," Tiffany reminded Trent, pressing herself against him. "And that's less important than us," she remarked. "My car's got a back seat, too," Trent pointed out. "Oh, I see. Trent, shall we head to Clark's and hang out in the back seat?" Tiffany inquired. The group settled on ice cream, and Tiffany, Pam, and John resumed their lively conversation. Eventually, John dropped off Tiffany and Trent in front of Manny's house, so Trent could retrieve his car. "Absolutely," John agreed. "Thank goodness it's not," Pam exclaimed. "I thought girls liked guys with a sense of humor," John quipped. "Do you know where Huala Dam is?" Pam asked. As John drove towards Huval's levee, Trent pulled up to the pool. "Why are we here?" Tiffany asked, scanning the area. "Hey, what's the deal? $50? Trent interjected. He opened the car door and stepped out onto the pavement. As he moved to open the back door of his mother's car, Tiffany swiftly pulled out her cell phone and dialed number 2. "Come pick me up. We're at the pool," Tiffany said when Pop answered. Noticing Tiffany tightly clutching the front seat, Trent remained focused on his task. Ignoring the approaching car, Trent continued to grapple with the stubborn thing. His shirt tore as Mr. Delbert grabbed Trent's collar, lifting him off the ground. "Come on, baby, get in the car," Mr. Delbert said softly to Tiffany. She grabbed her purse and left Trent's car. "Thank you, Daddy," Tiffany sobbed as she got into her stepfather's car. Mr. Delbert set Trent down, turned him around, and gave him a serious look. "Son, you better stay away from my girl, you hear me?" he growled, then got into the car. "Thanks, Daddy," Tiffany remarked sarcastically. "No, my dear, thank you for calling me," Mr. Delbert said softly, taking her hand in his. He held her hand all the way home. With a loving squeeze, he let her go, and she exited the car. "Thank you, honey," his wife whispered as they lay in bed. "For what?" he inquired. "For going to get my little girl," she replied. "But she's not your baby girl," he countered, pulling her close. "When that 3-year-old first climbed into my lap and called me Daddy, she became my baby girl." They ventured to Huval's downpour. Good God, Tiffany wasn't kidding. John knew how to kiss, and they kissed. Then she uttered these words. On their first date, she had actually said, "I love you." "You're a dummy," she scolded herself. She wondered if Tiffany had been equally foolish to confess her love to John. Probably not. Tiffany had been on more than one first date, and even second and third dates. But this was Pam's second first date. Her first had been with Connor Bro, and it had been a miserable experience. Connor hadn't even kissed her, let alone touched her breasts. "I love you. What were you thinking, Pam?" She scolded herself again. John admired his mother's new watch, a gift from her current boyfriend. She was convinced this was the man who would propose and make an honest woman out of her. She had been sure of that with the previous guy and the one before him. "Dude, is that an Omega?" John asked, glancing at the watch again. "Yeah, it's a good brand, right?" Merlin replied. Mom, please tell me you kept the box, John hurriedly asked, stuttering so much his mother had to ask him to slow down and repeat himself twice more. Well, yeah, I think it's in my dresser drawer, Merlin confirmed. John rushed out of the room to grab his book bag. The last thing he grabbed was his cell phone. Claire texted me she needs a ride to school, he explained hurriedly to his mother, who was still finishing her coffee. Love you, Mom, John said excitedly, kissing her and darting out of the house. I love you too, boy, she smiled. Love me? Grant asked, putting his bowl in the dishwasher. Put it in properly. You act like you've never seen a dishwasher before, she snapped. They went to Taco Bell, where Angel had to pay, and waited until 10 o'clock, Tad's grandmother's bedtime. Are you ready? Tad asked after coming in. Ready for what? Claire replied. I'll take you home, Tad said. On Saturday, John took her to dinner at Sweet Pea instead of Radcliffe's. The stuffed bell peppers were good, much better than Taco Bell. Then John suggested going bowling. Do I look like I'm dressed for bowling? Claire shouted at him. But John seemed unfazed by her outburst. He just shrugged and drove her home. Is that all? Demanded Claire. Yeah, Claire, that's it. You didn't want to go bowling? John shrugged. Now, on Monday, Angel had to ask for a ride to school herself, not her usual drone begging for the privilege to drive her. When will your car be ready? John asked as Claire got into his car. I don't know, Claire admitted. They want a 20% advance before they even start work. Then just take the car back until you have the 20%, John advised. Or you could give me the 20%, Claire snapped back. I would, but I need to buy a young lady a watch she's wanted for a long time, John responded. His excitement made him stutter so horribly that Claire had to mull over what he said. Then she gasped with delight. Did you get it? Oh, John, that's so great, she purred, holding out her wrist. Really? Asked John as they pulled up to the school. What? Asked Claire. You think I'm just going to give away a watch that costs $650? John replied. So what's next? Asked Claire. John got out of the car and picked up his bag of textbooks. How do you think I feel? John said, slamming his car door shut. Claire's blood boiled. Tad swore he wasn't like her last boyfriend. Damn girl, Tad assured her, nodding toward John's car. We got something good going on here. You know what I mean? Like I would ruin it by talking crap? Tad assured her again that he hadn't said anything about them to John or any of his friends. Shitty girl. What do they know? We're not even in the same room. You know what I mean, he said as she stood in front of him, her beautiful face contorted with anger. He then asked her about Radcliffe. She didn't know whether to believe him or not and stomped away. She cornered John in the library during their study session and begged him again to give her the watch. What? John almost laughed. His loud outburst caught Mrs. Brown Comwell's attention. She almost rose to her feet, but another student asked for her help. What? Demanded Claire. He walked away, leaving a stunned Claire standing still, and then he runs and tells the whole world about it? What are you talking about? Hissed Tad. At the end of the school day, Claire didn't dare play the game of making John wait for her. She stood by his car and waited for him. You don't have that watch, she rebuked, an idea Tad had planted in her mind. Oh? John showed her the Omega box and zipped up his bag. He tossed his book bag into the back seat. Whitney's having some stupid dance, Claire suggested half-heartedly, glancing again at John's book bag. You want to go to this? Asked John. It's at Kizzy's dance school, right? No, I thought we'd go back to my house and... Claire trailed off. Tad claimed she was his woman, but Claire wanted the watch. He could make all the claims he wanted, but open his mouth and tell everyone what they'd done together? Sure, John shrugged. Claire's eyes narrowed and her mouth clenched. John Ungle was her drone, her minion. The invitation to return to her home while the adults weren't there should have elicited more than a shrug. John should have gladly accepted, should have thanked the God he believed in for the opportunity. Reaching the house, Claire strode to the door, unlocked it, and made sure they were indeed alone. John looked around her room with interest. It was a typical American princess's room, and Claire was unkempt. Claire flopped down on the bed, kicked off her tennis shoes without unlacing them, and wriggled out of her jeans, blouse, and bra. "Can I use your bathroom?" asked John. "Where's my watch?" Claire demanded. "In my bag, in the car," said John. "Shall I go and get it?" pleaded Claire. "Do this, do that. How about what I want?" asked John. Claire breathed a sigh of relief and patted the bed beside her. They kissed for a few minutes. It was over very quickly. He managed to get to the car and got in. He almost caught Claire's hand as he slammed the car door shut. Claire would punch his car window and then kick his car viciously as he drove away. However, without shoes, kicking the car was not the best idea. Her father was unhappy that he was called away from Whitney's dance recital to take Claire to St. Elizabeth's Trauma Center. "And what did you fight that boy for?" asked Steve. Claire didn't answer. In her pain-numbed mind, she just couldn't think of a good reason why she'd kicked John's car. "And what was he doing in my house when I wasn't there?" Steve pressed. At home, John put the watch box back on his mother's dresser and then smiled when 2 more text messages from Pam appeared on the screen. In her bedroom, Pam squealed with joy when John answered her with, "I love you." Claire walked up to Thad and slapped him as hard as she could. Thad slapped Claire across the face. He wasn't going to let her act like that. For the slap, Claire was suspended for 3 days and Thad was expelled. Tiffany went from one relationship to another, none lasting longer than a month, and most not even a week. Pam and John dated exclusively until the end of the school year. More than once, Mrs. Brown Comwell had to kick them out from behind the last row of bookshelves during class. But after graduation, Pam left for Norma College in Low Ridge, Texas, and John stayed in DeGard, Louisiana, doing chores until he was 21 years old and could go north to the Arkansas Driving Institute to become a truck driver. They tried to keep their affair at a distance, but Pam eventually met and fell in love with an engineering student from San Diego, California. Trent traveled further north to Colfax, Missouri, to attend Missouri River State, where he majored in education. "Vanilla Boy is here," Pop announced as the car stopped in front of the house. "Are you kissing him?" demanded Tiffany. "That's the only reason you'd call him Vanilla Boy, because you're pressing your lips to his," she added as the doorbell rang. "We need to knock. The doorbell doesn't work," she shouted. "The doorbell works. I fixed it last month, remember?" John shouted back, but still knocked. "Hi, honey," John greeted when she opened the door. "Are you ready?" "Have a good run?" asked Mr. Delbert. "Yes, sir. It didn't snow in Philadelphia until I was already on the highway," John replied. "Mom, I'm leaving," Tiffany called out. "Is my favorite son-in-law here?" her mother asked, coming down the stairs. "Your only son-in-law," Tiffany replied. John hugged Tiffany's mother and then stepped aside so Tiffany could hug her as well. "I told you when you came the first time, treat her right, and you won't have anything to worry about, right?" said Mr. Delbert, hugging John's shoulders affectionately. "I'll try to treat her right," John agreed. "Yeah, I know that, Mr. Delbert said. As they climbed into the Peterbilt, Tiffany said, "Oh, I saw your friend." "Yeah? What was Claire doing?" asked John. "Her stomach's so big it looks like she's about to pop," Tiffany said, leaning against him.